I'm Chris Terranova, and this is Generational Exchange. 4 generations, one conversation. The business world is a tapestry woven from different threads. The experience of seasoned veterans, the tech-savvy energy of the younger generation, and everything in between. In this podcast, we'll unravel those threads, exploring the unique perspectives from panelists in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s on today's business challenges. By bringing together these unique voices, we hope to spark new ideas, bridge the generation gap, and equip listeners with a well-rounded approach to navigating the ever-evolving business landscape. All right, welcome everyone to the roundtable. I'm your moderator, Chris Terranova, and alongside me, I have Rhett Suchu. But in future episodes, we're going to have a team in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s representing over 120 years of business experience across generations. So, by way of introduction, starting with me, I'm one of those folks on the podcast that'll have a few more miles on the odometer than others. I'm representing the viewpoint of someone who's in their 50s, although dewy soft skin. Am I right? Um, but I have over 30 years of experience in the trenches. I've worn many hats, from building my own businesses to navigating the corporate landscape. My sweet spot really has been in customer success and operations, most recently as the president and COO of a staffing company. I have an MBA and a project management certification. I look forward to getting into this. So next and alongside me here on the call, we also have Rhett Suchu. Rhett, who kind of represents the millennial point of view, has a fresh and unique energy from someone in their 30s, despite being the youngest one in our group. This man has an MBA under his belt and several years already clocked in ed tech leadership. He also brings with him an entrepreneurial spirit from being part of several family businesses. Rhett's currently the VP of operations at a medical staffing company, and he's keeping things running smoothly all the time. Rhett, welcome aboard.
Thank you, Chris. You didn't quite go as above as I wanted you to, but that's all right. We'll keep that
Listen,
description.
we're going to get into that when we start talking about being a mentor, but just blow your role there. In
No,
future
thank you.
episodes, in future episodes, we're going to be joined by Jeremy Davidson, who represents our 40-something group, and Mark Russell, who is going to represent our 60-something group. But for today, Rhett and I are going to be talking about what it's like to be a mentor. Do you need one? 5 things to look for in a mentor. So from that perspective, Rhett and I were actually mentor-mentee, so we've got a good perspective on that. Before we dive into that topic, though, Rhett, I wanted to ask you, the goal of this podcast is really to look at topical things that we're all dealing with, but from a generational perspective.
Right.
Can you give me a little bit of why you wanted to be a part of the podcast with us, and what do you think you're going to get out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you just said, a big part of it for me is hoping that these different generational perspectives can really help people. And we know that everyone is going through these, right? Because we're going through these situations and these conversations. And so, that's part of why we all wanted to start it, was to be open and have the conversations. But for me personally, what it does is it's because it combines two of my greatest loves, which are building businesses and fostering strong relationships. The people on this podcast, and hopefully the others we can have come on as guests in the future, are some of my closest friends and coworkers. I'm excited to share my journey of starting and growing ventures while also diving into the power of collaboration and how it can fuel success. Whether it's the thrill of launching an idea or the camaraderie built alongside amazing teammates, both aspects fuel my drive. And I believe hearing these stories can hopefully inspire others on their own paths.
I think that's 100% right. I mean, from my perspective, I think being the catalyst for bringing us all together, you and me and Jeremy, you and Jeremy, all of us talked to Mark. We were all talking to each other anyway, about business, about the successes, the challenges. A few of us are looking for new opportunities. It was almost like therapy in a way. And, the catalyst for me was really, how do we bring together those ideas? We're all talking anyway. Could we make it so that while we're talking, we can provide value to each other and others? And hopefully by bringing some unique perspectives to the table, we can learn from each other. We can bridge the generational gap and, hopefully give a toolbox of ideas to other people to help fix business challenges in a way that feels authentic, but also helps people grow. So I'm hoping that everybody gets out of that what I think you and I are going to get out of this on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's dive into our topic. Today, we're talking about the value of having a mentor, right? Just by way of introduction, what is a mentor? According to the Oxford Dictionary, the short and simple answer is a mentor is defined as an experienced and trusted advisor, right? In business, a lot of times a mentor is someone who is a little farther along than you that can help you on your journey and help you, really, I think from a professional and personal basis, learn how to navigate a business and maybe, move a little bit quicker through that process.
Right.
Um, what do you think, Brett?
Yeah, 100%. I have had many mentors over the years, and it's been one of my primary goals to always try and have mentors because I'm always looking for a different perspective, someone who can help me see something that maybe I can't, or give me feedback, right? Continue to push me so that it's all not just self-driven, and so that I have different perspectives and guidance, right? So that I'm making sure that I'm doing the best that I can do, both within work and outside of work, with all the varying priorities we have going on. So couldn't agree more.
Yeah, for sure. One of my favorite books that I've read in the last couple of years is a book called Radical Candor. And it's really about how to be authentic and transparent and kind of be honest as you go through business. And we'll certainly dive more into that as we go on later episodes. But I was looking for the value of having a mentor, right? And Radical Candor's website has a definition that says mentors raise your confidence and problem solving abilities. Along with developing leadership skills, having a mentor to advise and guide you can increase your confidence and help develop problem solving skills. Regarding confidence, research has tied having a mentor to an overall increase in emotional health. And I can say, especially during my time in the last 15 years or so when I was in corporate America, having a
Hmm.
mentor, because I was a little bit more seasoned when I went into, corporate world. Before that, I worked in family businesses and things like that.
Right.
Having a mentor who was both had some that were older, some that were younger, but they all gave me something. And I did learn to have some confidence. It did help me feel a little bit more, uh, uh, I guess, confident to say, listen, if I've got a problem, I've got somebody I can ask and help, you know,
Right.
help me frame that problem in a tangible and tactical way. From your
Right.
experience, you and I worked together for a long time. Did you find that to be the case?
Yeah. So one of the things I always try to do, and you do as well, is try not to be in an echo chamber, right? Make sure that what you're doing makes sense, and having that mentor and someone that you trust to be candid and let you know if, hey, you can do it differently, or I think you could do this possibly better.
Right.
Whatever the tough conversation or guidance you may need is, that person is there for that reason, because otherwise you may not have that in the business world, where there are certain conversations that may not happen naturally. There are certain topics that won't come up, right? And if you don't have that mentor, I think you're going to struggle more often than not to explore those ideas and tough decisions and make sure that you're navigating them effectively.
No, I think that's right. I think that's right. We came up with 5 things to look for in a mentor, what I thought we could do maybe. And again, Rhett and I have been mentor mentee business colleagues for 5 years now. We thought we could use our experience to go through each of these 5 things, talk a little bit about what they mean to us, and the value of them. So let's dive into the first one. The first one is alignment. And it's really important, I think, to find someone whose experience aligns with your goals and whose career path you want to emulate or you want something similar. Um, from my perspective, right, when I first started really moving up in corporate America, um, I was looking for people that had the job that I wanted. And so
Mhm.
aligning myself with them, getting feedback about what was their experience like, it was a lot different than I expected. They didn't just crash land into this role, they had to work their way through it. Finding
Right.
that and having someone who could give me that experience and some guideposts was really important to me. And it really helped me kind of frame the direction I wanted to go. from your perspective, like, do you feel the same way? Like when you and I first started working together, you know, did you feel that? And maybe even before you answer that, you should talk a little bit about how you decided that you wanted to see if I would be your mentor.
Well, so I'll say for the younger listeners, especially, I was absolutely terrified of you when I first met you. I mean, I'd heard all these um, just amazing stories about Chris Turnova and what he'd done as the VP of the branch. And I was probably about a year into being at the company, and I'd managed to get promoted. So I thought I was along the right path, but you were still at least 3 or 4 levels above me. And so it was terrifying for those listening. It was terrifying to approach this mammoth of a man.
I'm a
But
pussycat. But go ahead.
um, yes, exactly. Very nice. Um, but that's important, right? I think that's an important point to hit on, especially for those in my generation and below, is that it's not maybe going to feel uh, natural immediately, right? Or at least to take that first step. And you most likely, as the mentee, may have to take that step. That's part of how this happened. And we'll get into it later, but you offered to have skip level meetings with people. And I was
Right.
one of the people that took advantage of that. So, furthermore into that, though, once I did finally take that step and start talking to you, I found that we aligned on many different things, both in the business world and outside, as far as we're both extremely motivated individuals. I'm always trying to kind of push the pace, do the best that I can do, continue to grow. And you were someone who, like you mentioned earlier, was in a position that I was hoping to be in one day, but also had kind of a mindset and the skills that I thought could really help me. So,
Yeah, and I think what you said is really important too. If you're not sure where to start with finding a mentor, if someone in a higher position is offering skip levels, take
mhm,
advantage of that. That doesn't necessarily mean that's your forever mentor, but that's someone who's looking to share, to help others grow, right? I mean, the reason I did skip levels, frankly, was because in my previous career, when I was first starting to come up, the VP of operations, there was a whole crop of us starting and he said, I want you guys to feel comfortable setting up a meeting with me, and I'm happy to talk to you about what's going on. And he became my mentor because I was literally the only one who took him up on it. Right.
right,
So if someone says, hey, set up a skip level with me, yes, a title can be intimidating, but if they're offering, chances are they want to meet with you. So don't be afraid because that's how you and I connected. Right.
right,
Um, I think one thing I'm going to say too about Rhett, as I think you were 25 at the time and I was, older. Um, it can be intimidating, but one of the things that Rhett did that I really want people to think about is Rhett came in with some poise and had a reason why he wanted me to be a mentor, not just because I was the VP, but he really did say, hey, I want to learn from you. I have these things that I want to get out of it. He had a plan, right? So when you're thinking about alignment, when you're thinking about those things, and we'll talk more about the other items, to me, that's something to look for me as a mentor and for you as a mentee. It really was finding someone, that aligned, but you came in making it something that I wanted to invest in, right?
right,
So let's move on to the second one. Challenge and support, right? When you're seeking a mentor, you want someone who's going to push you to grow and give you constructive feedback and celebrating wins. And Red, I think it's been 5 years. I think you still have a little PTSD about this presentation, but can you talk a little bit about the first time you and I had been working together for a while, but this was a really big presentation that we were giving to the company. It was a town hall, and your manager at the time had given you some guidance like, this is how you present to Chris, this is the data. You thought you were going to knock it out of the park. Can you talk a little bit about how I both kind of challenged and supported you in that instance?
yeah, a lot of support during that initial one. A lot of support, felt supporting. Um, So this is really important for people, right? Especially with having a mentor, is it is not always going to be rubbing your back, handing you a cookie, telling you that you're doing great, right? And that's not what you want, because that doesn't help you grow.
That's right.
Usually growth and change are not the most pleasant experiences if you're doing them right. They can be painful sometimes. Not that someone's just explicitly being mean, right? But sometimes they do have to help you get back on the right track, right? And that presentation at the time, again, I was mostly shell shocked because I went in and basically gave you a red pen and you used it. And there were a lot of things that needed to change about that presentation. But after the meeting, I looked at all of them and they were all right, right? They were all helping me improve. All the decisions and changes were getting us to a better place. And so that's something that I think people should know, especially when getting a mentor, is that there are going to be times like that.
Right.
And you may not always accept the information as well as you could, but work on it, right? Come back to that person and say, hey, I don't think I took that information as well as I should have, which I think I came to you later and said that. But I hear you and I like the ideas, right?
Well, and I think that goes into the third one is honesty and trust, right?
Hmm.
Choose someone you feel comfortable confiding in and who respectfully delivers honest feedback, right? From my perspective, the reason I was hard on you, and I wasn't mean, I was direct, right?
Right.
I think you can say differently, right?
You
But I
were,
think the
of course.
reason I was being hard on you is because I expected so much of you because I saw what you were capable of. And it was almost for me, it was a way that I wish someone had done some of those things for me a little earlier in my career, kind of shifted
Right.
my perspective. Um, you don't know you're doing wrong or saying wrong or thinking wrong until somebody almost has the courage to talk to you. But there has to be the ability to be honest, and there has to be bi-directional trust. You have to trust me that I'm not trying to get you in trouble or trying to make you fail. I'm trying to make you the best version of you and
Right.
indirectly impacting me because we're also in the same org structure, right? So you doing well, high tide raises all boats. It helps me too. Do you agree with
Exactly.
that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can. I guess you could have a mentor-mentee relationship with limited trust, but I don't think you would nearly get the results that you're looking for, right? These are, again, you're kind of trusting someone with helping you build yourself from the
Right.
mentee perspective, right? So if you don't trust this individual, they could lead you down the wrong path, get you fired. There's a lot of things that, and not to scare anyone, right? Don't be scared about this, but if you feel like you can't be open and trust your mentor, it may be worth reconsidering, is that relationship working how it should be? Absolutely, I have to be able to trust you, right? If I can't trust you, then I'm going to have even less confidence going into these situations where my mentor was supposed to be the one who has been through it before and
Right.
maybe made the mistakes, right? And can tell me differently. So
That's right.
100%.
Well, and one of the topics that we're going to be talking about in a future podcast with Mark and Jeremy is imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
And I want to continue to reiterate that a mentor-mentee relationship is not a unilateral conversation. To me, it's very bi-directional because, if it's okay for me to disclose this, you had talked about one time having imposter syndrome. And
Hmm.
I had to be honest and transparent with you. And I frankly had to trust you to say, listen, even in my coveted position, I have imposter syndrome sometimes, and it was a safe space. It was almost like Las Vegas, if you will, where I knew if I told you and talked to you, one, I was hoping it would validate that it's okay to feel that way, that you can actually use that as a superpower. But two, it also helped me a little bit to kind of be honest, to take that rock out of my backpack and say, yeah,
Right.
sometimes I still have imposter syndrome too. So I think it's valuable to hear that and get that feedback bi-directionally. Um, Clearly, this is something I do not lack, right? Is passion. But really, the next item is passion and availability, right? You want to find someone who's genuinely interested in your success, but also has the time to dedicate to your growth. And I think for both of us, right, I really did take an interest in your career and both helped guide you when you were kind of working indirectly for me. And in the
Right.
last couple of instances, I've actually brought you with me because I saw the value of what you had. We just worked well together, right? But I had to make the time for you as a mentor. Frankly, you
Right.
had to make the time for me. A lot of times people would come to me and they would sign up for a skip level and they'd have no agenda. They were expecting me to drive everything, right? And I think part of that passion and availability, again, is bi-directional. You have to come with some things to talk about. And that's something I always give you credit for is you always had topics. You always had things you were curious about. And the more curious you were, the more I opened up. And I probably told you a lot of things that were above your pay grade that you may not have been privy to otherwise. But again, it
Right.
goes back to honesty and trust. So talk a little bit about passion and availability from your perspective.
Yeah, so passion is again something I don't think either of us lack, especially since I think, if we were going downtown, we could talk business all night and be happier than anyone else there, right? It's something that we're interested in.
Very true.
But to that point, passion is important in what you're doing. And when you have a mentor-mentee relationship, it's not necessarily that you have to have exactly the same passions, right? But you should have some things that either allow you to, challenge and push each other even, right? Like you're talking about, it's a two-way street. And so find out what your passions are, what drives you, what helps make those challenging conversations easier because you're passionate about it. And then the availability aspect, obviously, you have to set aside some amount of time to be prepared for these types of things.
Right.
So for us, I think it was like once a month was a skip level when we started. But yeah, definitely brought a full agenda and I brought more rather than less, just hoping that I'd impress you with something.
Bear with me 1 second so I can let my dog out. Hang on. All right. Let's move
Yep.
on to the next topic, which is a growth mindset. You want to find a mentor who is constantly learning themselves, showing the importance of lifelong development. I mean, for me as an adult learner, right? I got my MBA when I was in my early 40s. I got my PMP when I was, I think, in my mid 40s. I'm always taking courses. I'm always reading. I don't want to go, well, I've learned all there is to learn about business. I mean, even to the point where that's why I started this podcast, right? Is I want us to learn from each other. So I find this really important. Um, Tell me a
Mhm.
little bit about that from your perspective as well.
Yeah. So a mentor should be someone that, again, to a degree, you're aspiring to kind of be like or gain parts of their toolbox that they have, skills, things like that. And so as you're learning those, though, you're building yourself up, right? And your mentor is most likely building themselves up. So growth, at least if you're both passionate and again, making the availability tends to happen with both of you. And, if I can be so bold, I think we both have grown from our mentor-mentee relationship over the
100%.
years.
Yeah,
Um,
I think we have, right? I think I don't look at you now as a mentee. I think I still, even though we don't work together anymore, we still collaborate a lot. We still talk about going into business together, right? But you'll call me once in a while and say, "Hey, I've got a question. I've got something I haven't done before." Frankly, I learned things from you too, right? I mean, I've come to you and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think?" I come to you just like this podcast. I came to you and said, "What do you think? Am I off base here?" I wanted your feedback. I didn't want you to just validate me. If it was a dumb idea, I felt comfortable going back to honesty and trust and passion and everything else. You would tell me, it's
right.
got nothing, right? And that is
Yep.
something that has grown. I think the benefit of the mentor-mentee relationship is I've become probably, for the most part, pretty good friends with all of my mentors, right, through my career. And several of my mentees, we're still very close. We still talk. Clearly you and I do. But I
Yeah,
think that is really important, and we continue to learn as we go.
absolutely. Yep.
All right. So let's sum up the 5 components. We'll kind of run through those again real quick. If you're looking for a mentor, you want to find alignment. You want to find someone who's going to challenge and support you. You want to find somebody where you have an honesty and trust level that you feel like you can really talk about what's either bothering you or you want to learn about. You want to find someone who's got passion and an availability to help you grow. If they're too busy, it's not going to do you any good. And then the fifth thing is finding someone who's got a growth mindset, someone who on their own is continuing to learn and you learn from each other. So, wrapping that up, Red, is there anything else that you feel like we need to let people know about the finding a mentor or being a mentor or a mentee?
No, I mean, I just say, if you haven't ever thought about it, try it, right? If you failed, you're right where you were beforehand with not having a mentor. So try it, see if you can find someone that can help you advance your career, especially for the younger listeners. It has helped me really improve a lot faster than I think I could have. So that's what I'd leave
Agreed.
people with.
Agreed. All right. Well, that does it for our podcast, Rhett. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to many more of these and us learning together as we go.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
All right, to everyone else, thanks for joining us on this episode of the Generational Exchange. We hope the conversation between us generational folk has sparked some new ideas and helped you see the business world from fresh perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe for more insightful discussions across the generations. And if you have a burning business question you'd like us to tackle, leave us a comment or shoot us an email at cmsrconsultingllc@gmail.com. Until next time, keep on innovating.